human beings. It's great to actually be in a room in front of actual human beings. I forgot how you all look like. I'm actually a little bit excited about this. And thank you, Rob, with your 5 last names, for the amazing introduction, if you're ever looking for a job. I have the opportunity to speak today about something that I feel very emotional about, something that we talk about with every customer and prospect hundreds and hundreds of times at Workivivo over the past 2 years, which makes me believe that it's everyone's number one challenge today, which is how to retain our best talent, our best people, how to attract the best people to work for us when the old stuff seems to not be working anymore, and a change of paradigm is needed. But I'd like to start, I need to go faster because I have only 15 minutes and I'm not known for my brevity. So I want to start with a question. It might sound a little bit provocative, but I want you to really give it like a proper think. That's me again. Should I do the introduction again? How much money would it take in order for you to sell me an entire year of your life? Try to think of a number. You don't have to sell me the entire year. I mean, you go into hibernation. You go to sleep and you wake up after a year. And it doesn't have to be a whole year, okay? We could do credit, like 8 hours a day for 3-4 years maybe. Then we could talk about a second plan. It's even uncomfortable asking that, right? Because it's not a real question, and I hope that nobody would even consider it. And if there is somebody weird in the audience that is considering it, then I hope you have an obscene amount of money in your mind, way more than a few salaries. But this is what we're actually talking about today. In 2022, the Great Resignation or the Great Realization, people are not willing to sell their time anymore. They don't want to forfeit a chunk of their lives anymore. The role of work is changing, and we as employers need to wake up and understand it. I read this article by Ariana Huffington that said that this is actually the Great Awakening, which it really struck me. I could feel it. She says that it's not only about burnout. People are quitting their jobs because they're redefining success right now. Expectations are changing. A big bang happened 2 years ago, and we've been falling off a cliff ever since. We've all been pushed off that cliff, right? And trying to figure it out. Everything has changed. And expectations, they're still changing. All the time. The future of work, that overused term, suddenly became the present of work. Chief digital transformation officers that used to present plans for 30 years from now, suddenly you have a job like now. How do we transform yesterday? And everything changed. In the world of one of the greatest philosophers of our time, Miss Melanie C. from the Spice Girls, things will never be the same again. And the ones that think that it's going to be the same are in for a big, big, big surprise. So, we're all falling off that cliff. A lot of leaders, and I have a chance to meet a lot of these leaders every week, are doing exactly this, waiting for this nightmare to be over with so everything could get back to the way it was. Perfect. Ain't gonna happen. And there is sort of a redistribution of capital, wealth, if you will, that is taking place. And this reminds me of Kodak, a little bit of Nokia, of companies that didn't understand the magnitude of transformation that they were looking at and didn't stay relevant. Others are trying to sort of build a parachute on the way down, so the blow isn't that hard. The bold ones, which I hope are in the room with me right now, are trying to quickly build an airplane on the way down to seize this historic opportunity of going from office-centric to digital-first and connect everyone. Even the 70% working in the front line, in the restaurant, in the hotel, in the mine, in the store, that traditionally have never been really connected to our cultures, to our vibes. These are going to seize an opportunity to become far greater than ever before. I think our job as people that believe this is to inspire our leaders, our CEOs, to actually seize that opportunity. We haven't been properly introduced, so I'm Gideon from Workivivo, and 10 seconds for context. We have what we call an employee experience app. It's a communication platform designed to meaningfully reach, connect, and engage your people everywhere. Home, office, in between, in the front line, in the field, bringing your company culture to life, making it very easy digitally to give each other recognitions and shout outs and post something and connect it to a company value or a company goal and become that beating heart of the company, something that we needed to sell harder 2 years ago and became what a lot of CEOs in traditional companies are seeking since the pandemic started. So what actually happened? How did this whole thing start? A lot have changed since Charlie Chaplin worked in that factory. Great movie, by the way. Minimum wage, employee rights, social benefits. The markets became more competitive. We became more than just levers in a machine. But for a lot of us, from even most of us, work wasn't really working. Some of us even, got to work in great companies with amazing offices and ping pong tables and these cocoons that they have in the Google office that you could take a nap in, free massage, and still work wasn't working. What wasn't working before the pandemic? Let's talk about it through examples. Think about Lucy, a single mom of 2, trying to juggle frantically between raising her 2 kids and being a high performer at work with less time, always running, chasing her own tail, always tired, haven't seen a show on Netflix for ever, and commuting to work to be on time 2.5 hours every day, tired. Think about Billy, proud to be working in a top-notch Silicon Valley tech company, all these cocoons in the office to take a nap and ping pong tables and whatnot. She has unlimited paid time off, unlimited. In reality, she hasn't taken a day off for over 2 years, and when she does take a few hours off, she apologizes and promises everybody she'll be absolutely available on Slack. Not balanced. Or think about Anthony. He works in a factory. He hates his job. He expects to get paid on time, not more. They expect him to be there on time and do his work, and not more. Hibernated. And finally, a dad, 2 kids. He feels their childhood is slipping away. He doesn't have quality time with them. He comes back from work every day when they're tired, and he is so tired, when they're tired or asleep, and he is drained emotionally, physically. His wife tells him every day, we always get the leftovers. And he's missing out, like a lot of dads out there. And that one makes me emotional. You could hear it in my voice because that person is me. It used to be me. 2 years ago, what did I want? I wanted to be a part of their lives. I wanted to take them to school or to the kindergarten once or twice a week. Be present a little bit, every day. Not too much. After tasting that, I hope my wife is not watching. Yes, too much, every day. So, after tasting that, sort of like forbidden fruit, there is no really going back for a lot of people. And in the words of another great philosopher, Mr. Frank Sinatra, no, they can't take that away from me, not anymore. This is here to stay. People don't want to be selling their time anymore. So what's happening right now? If everything was suddenly working? No. 2-3 months into the pandemic, and I know that you could all relate to this as people's managers and also as employees yourselves. Fatigue, alienation, less human contact, our work being distilled to 8 hours or more in front of the screen every day, becoming sort of like Zoom zombies. Right? It changed in a big way. People forgetting to eat lunch. Did it happen to any of you, forgetting to eat lunch? It happened to me all the time. And people weren't happy. Work wasn't working. Work wasn't working. Work isn't working. So what is the problem? What is happening right now? Why isn't it working? There was a fascinating multi-region survey research by McKinsey recently, and they asked the same questions, employers and employees. And it reminds me a little bit of the stuff that Wendy was talking about in her presentation. And there is a huge disconnect that they found between the reasons, when you ask employers and employees, they perceive this dynamic differently. While employers give you transactional reasons, it's about compensation, right? Flexibility, they want to work a little bit more from home. And it also has to do with like physical and mental well-being because the pandemic was very hard for everyone. Well, no, you ask the employees, and these reasons exist, but the top three, 54% not feeling appreciated by the company. 52% not feeling appreciated by their direct managers. 51% simply, they don't feel that they belong. Relational reasons. And this is the core, which brings me to the first big takeaway from today. Everything else is noise or a nice to have. The core, the heart of an employee experience, and that's every book in history about happiness is about an emotional connection, a sense of belonging, meaningful relationships. Ping pong tables, free subscriptions to a meditation app, whatnot, nice to haves. This is the core. So what do they want? A great quote by the great Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American congresswoman in the US. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. People want a seat at the table. You can't give everybody a seat at that table, but you can give them a seat at some table. What do they want? They want to be involved. They want to feel like they belong. They want to be listened to. They want to feel that they could change the course a little bit of how things are happening in their company. They want to feel their leaders, not just see them next to the water cooler once every year or two. They want to be a part of it. They want to be engaged. And engagement, big takeaway number 2, is your best investment. And the thing you can measure that I think is the most correlated to the actual employee experience that you could invest in. Every company in the world that does research, Gartner and Gallup and whoever, all agree that nothing yields better ROI, return on investment, than engagement. The number one business cost in the world would be employee turnover, right? Attrition. $1 billion in the US, $1 billion in the US alone. And that's before the Great Resignation. So Gallup says companies with engaged teams see 40% less attrition than the average company. 40%. Gartner says that these companies have 22% higher rates of employee candidate referrals, meaning your most talented friends coming to work for the company in a much cheaper way. SHRM.org, 37% less absenteeism. AON spoke here earlier today, 21% higher productivity. Think about these numbers. Nothing yields better ROI than engagement. It's what should be the sort of holy grail, the North Star that we're following, as something that is very correlated to that emotional connection. And finally, in the 47 seconds and maybe 3 minutes that I'm going to steal that I have left, I'm going to give you the whole Bible. No, I'm going to give you another guiding principle that has to do with internal communications that I think is core, is key, and is what we should be thriving towards, not maybe overnight, in order to really create a communication system, internal communication system that works in our companies, works for our employees, and nourishes that change of paradigm that I was talking about. I like to call it open comms. We're writing this document called the Open Comms Manifesto, and the idea is first understanding that communication is front and center. And we need to change the way we communicate to people from top-down pyramidal structures of giving you instructions or some policies in a handbook somewhere that nobody ever sees. Try to quiz your people about what's the company values, right? To something that is democratized, flat, maybe more fluid, less rigid, even if you need to give up a little bit of control and let it build itself like a consumer community or social network. Let people have a voice. Find a way to give them a voice, to vote, to answer surveys, to like, to comment, to share, discover your own social carriers inside the organization. They would surprise you. And let them be engaged. They want to feel their leaders on a regular basis. They want communications that mentions these values and purposes every day. They want to feel that they know and they're a part of the company purpose, its values, its goals, and that they talk about it all the time. Not just once a year when you have an end of the year party and you show it on the wall. That journey towards open communications, community-based communications, moving from a pyramidal structure to a community-led structure is a journey. Some of you are higher on the maturity curve, some of you are lower, but it's important to have that as a beacon and try to inspire your leaders as to where the company should be headed and take that leap of faith. I'm not saying let them talk about everything, but find the way to put boundaries in place in order to allow people to have more freedom. So that's it. We talked about emotional connection being the core, engagement being the North Star you should really go after, and open communications, community-based communications, at least what I believe, is the only viable future of how we will communicate in the future workplace or the present workplace with our employees that need to feel it and be engaged. And concluding with the words of the last great philosopher for today, a friend and a fellow Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi. May the Force be with all of you. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.